want a countdown?
If you would like to.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Smurf! God damn it, stop calling me!
Alright, so right off the bat, Colin's going to be trying to kill off his main character. And the reason he wants to do this is for a skip that's coming up in the next screen. So usually in this game, you can walk around the first screen, you can attack these flowers to try to level up, you can pick up some ingredients for alchemy spells, which we'll use later. But on the next screen, there's a mini-boss fight with raptors, which takes a long time. So as you see there, he had his boy die, reach 0 HP, and then quickly switch characters to the dog, allowing him to come into this screen, which ends the cutscene with the mini-boss fight once the boy dies. So this quickly transports you to the first village of the game, Fire Eyes Village. He'll pick up a few more ingredients as he walks through the village. And for most of the run, you're going to be seeing that when he's walking or sprinting, he'll be walking diagonally, if possible, to gain a little more movement per frames. So the first skip's one coming up where he's going to skip past this guard. Quite admirably, I might add, Colin. Usually there's a trigger there that will force you to come back into the village because you need to talk to the village chief. But there's something called leashing in this game, which requires you to move the AI-controlled character over a trigger when you're not actually controlling it, and then quickly switching once that character is past the trigger. So for a typical speedrun, a player will have anywhere between 14 to 16 clay and crystal to get the hardball alchemy spell and have 16 to 14 of those spells for the first boss to the game. Now since this is a marathon, I'm assuming Colin's going to be getting 16 of each. We'll see how it goes through. But right now he just got the Jaguar ring, which will give him the ability to sprint in the game. Which is really important because it'd be a very boring speedrun if you were just walking through all these screens. So right now, it's just a bit of pathing. You'll be going through the sand pits, he'll go into the next screen, and the cave he enters is where he'll get his first spell, Hardball.
Yeah, ass raped right now.
So usually for a marathon, like I said, he'll have 16 Hardball. And he'll probably usually save at this cave, just in case something happens at Thrax, which is the first boss. And now he's going to sprint around, collecting a few ingredients, so he can get to the entrance of the Bug Muck, the Big Bug Maze. Now, the Big Bug Maze is full of these bridges which have invisible triggers that will break some of the bridges. So it's kind of a maze in the sense that if you try to step over a pathway that has this trigger, you won't be able to break the bridge, and you have to find a different path. So he was doing more leashing right there to get the boy or dog over these invisible triggers so he could just take a shortcut. Alright, so right there, he changed his stances, the boy aggressive, the dog defensive, and that's to kind of help some of the glitches and tricks in the run. And this skip coming up is what we call the intro skip. This is right before the first boss. It's going to require frame-perfect character switching on 2 exits. He's going to hold the boy in place with the pedal, and then get on the correct frame here and switch characters. And I'll talk about that while he's fighting this boss. So doing that forces the boy to walk left when into the boss room instead of walking straight up. the game usually forces the boy to walk straight up, which breaks the bridge at the very beginning of the room. But when you leave from a character switch to the left... I was trying to get the outro skip. That was good. That was good. So, yeah, long story short, he walked left instead of up to break the bridge. He then used that same bridge at the bottom to do the outro skip.
Rolling deep.
And first boss is done. So there's a little bit of a glitch there where the boy had 0 HP. If the boy takes lethal damage, but you switch characters and get him to cast alchemy quickly, he'll stay alive in a zombie state. We call that zombie boy, allowing him to continue doing damage and complete the boss fight. So right now he's going to prep for the second boss and get enough alchemy ingredients for some more hardball. We should probably thank Green Ambler for finding the intro and outro skip. That was a big time save in this run. So he's going to get 40 clay and 40 crystals. And go back to Fire Eyes Village, where you can progress the story. So right there, he's casting a little bit of clay, or yeah, a little bit of hardball to level up the alchemy a bit, so that it'll do more damage on the next boss. Right here, he's doing what we call a Fire Eyes skip. It's a frame-perfect switch, so the dog is locked into the text box, but you can still freely move around with the boy. This gets you to talk to the village chief and her scenario for the second time around. So you never have to actually do the first scenario of talking to her, where you name the dog and lose a bunch of time for the run. So usually we would get to this point in the run. This was about 5 or 6 years ago, and there's a whole extra area of this first act of the game where you have to go through a mammoth graveyard, you have to go up through a volcano, you have to go into a swamp, fight a very difficult boss which requires a lot of alchemy. But my only claim to fame with this game is what we call the volcano rock skip, and Con will be showcasing that in a second after he gets to defend, which we'll be using for the largest glitch of the game. So in this act, you typically want to sprint with the dog because he has the fastest sprint speed in this stage of the game. So right here, there's the base of the volcano that's blocked by a rock, but that rock is actually invisible when it's off screen. There's no hitbox on it, so switching characters menu-wise, going to the dog on the left side of the screen allows you to run through it. Now he's going to try to do this 3 more times here. We got it though. So he's doing a few more switches to get past the Viper there, go through this last rock, and then he's towards the end of the volcano. Alright, so there's a little bit of a maze here that he's just going to be running through. He knows the path. We're going to be trying to open a gate that leads to the boss. But for a typical marathon, he'll save here at the Viper, just in case Magmar is Magmar, which he usually is, when you don't want him to be. Alright, so he's gonna go fight the first boss now. Magmar is a bit of a pain. He is definitely a run killer. There's a few different attacks he can do. He can spit fireballs at you. He can roll into you. He can cast Heat Wave. But he can also jump into the lava again to heal, which you don't want to see. So right now we're seeing evil twins. It's a theme throughout the rest of this game, that each act has an evil twin associated with the kind of chief of that area.
Spoilers.
Alright. So this will be a mad cast of hardball, and this should be set up as safe. So you're going to see him going into the menu once all these hardball hit. And he's going into the menu to cancel the damage animation. Canceling. And hopefully this knocks him out. Finish off with some Storm, which is going to be calculated off the highest damage of your hardball right now. And dead Magmar. So great Act 1. Good job, Colin. Oh yeah, Mega Myers. There's going to be nothing but tactics here. Alright, so he's flying up. They're going to ride into Act 2, and this is where the first time in the game that your characters are actually going to be separated. And it's a recurring theme in this act. It's something you have to get used to, so playing casually, once you get used to playing with the dog, you kind of hate to lose him. But this lends itself to some glitches right off the bat as soon as you get in here.
Whose username is that? Holy shit. That's more surprising than the blunt knob getting through. Oh my god.
So he's going to wake up on this beach right here, and what he's going to try to do is what we call early dog and blimp skip. And for some reason, on this screen specifically, the game places the dog character sprite at the top left corner, which you can switch to but can't move. Colin, you're giving me a heart attack. You're giving me a heart attack. So, but you actually get control of the dog if you do a frame perfect switch. Oh my goodness. Good job, Colin.
I knew I should have practiced that.
No, that was fine. A lot of RNG there.
That was an RNG.
Well, NPC placement and all that.
I missed the frame completely. I should have just played it safe.
Hey, it still worked though. So if you character switch on the perfect frame when entering that cave screen, it'll actually bring the dog down to you, and then you can leash the boy over that pit, which typically in a playthrough you have to fall into to talk with Blimp, and he'll make a bridge, yada yada. We'll get to that later. So I missed a few things right there while I was explaining that. So real quick, he ran through the desert. The developers were pretty lazy with this game. They left in these little tiny areas that will warp you back and forth through the desert. So he did a forward desert skip right there to get to the other end. Because usually in a casual playthrough, it's a giant maze in that desert, and you could spend forever in there. The screen wraps and warps around. It's awful. But right now, when he entered this town, there started a timer, and it's somewhere between 14 and 15 minutes. And right, we've had
15 minutes.
What's that? Sorry.
I believe it's a little bit over 15 minutes.
It might depend on how many actions you take. I don't know how long it would take if we just sat there and waited for it. But we call it the 15-minute timer. And there's nothing we can do about it. No one's found a way to skip this yet. It's the game forcing you to take a 15-minute pause period before you can progress the story. But there is a ton of stuff we can do in the meantime. So right now he's trying to do the reverse desert skip, which is more difficult to do than the forward desert skip. So let me walk you through what he's going to be doing right here. He is going to be talking to Blimp because we need this bridge across this ravine. There's no other way to get through it once we get the dog back. But doing this during this 15-minute period doesn't waste time. The only thing that wastes time is going into your menu, any screen transitions, text boxes that have choices, and an odd NPC here or there, which will waste time if you talk to them.
The big reason that we do that is because we need to buy the ingredients and get Crush from Blimp.
Right.
Also,
So, go ahead, Con.
Confined helps. I don't think they can hear me though.
Well, that's not like you're whispering.
Fuck! What am I doing?
Oh, they heard that. Are you gonna? So, is you're I'm guessing you're gonna save after you level up, or? Oh, I guess okay. So he's gonna save right here, just in case something happens. So right now he's gonna be attempting to do the biggest glitch in the game, called Atlas Glitch, which is gonna require putting a few status effects on him and casting some spells to kind of glitch out what the game sees as actual status effects and change his stat values for attack and defense. But it relies on a lot of RNG. So what he's going to try to do is get poisoned by this spider. And each time he gets hit by a spider, he has a 1 in 8 chance of getting poisoned. If and when that happens, he'll then run down into the previous screen and get hit by a Mad Monk. Now each hit from the Mad Monk has a 1 in 8 chance of confounding him, or an additional 1 in 8 chance to plague him. He needs either one of them, preferably confound.
So I think it's important to explain also that the poison tick rolls your stats back, and by combining the status elements, you are underflowing your stats so that they're very high.
Right.
This is fucking sketchy. So if I die to poison, I'm going to overflow. Oh my god.
So it'll be close. This is usually a bad scenario.
Yeah. Plague hit me
So-
way too high.
That'll be a reset. So what happened there was he got plagued, and plague is actually a damage over time status effect. You really hate to see that on the second hit. With the amount of health he has, he can take 2 hits from a Mad Monk to double his chances of getting a status effect. It was just unlucky that he got plagued on the second hit. But this is why we save here for a marathon, because it's a definite run killer. You could take up to 10 times trying to get an Atlas Glitch to work. So what happens, when he has these status effects and he'll put Defend on and Atlas on, he'll have poison, and the length of time after he takes poison damage will determine how low his strength goes.
Or, well, how high, yes. But yeah, basically.
Well, yeah, so it changes his strength based on time after he took poison damage. And so what he wants to avoid is taking lethal poison damage. And he also wants to avoid...
Exactly. It negates it also if you die from poison.
Right, if you die from poison, it negates this glitch. He wants to avoid taking lethal damage quickly after a poison tick of damage, because it'll put him at an extremely high strength value, but if it's too high and he levels up too much during the run, it'll roll his strength over, and he won't be able to do any damage, or considerable damage for all the trolls out there who want to be specific.
But in that scenario, I can equip the bone crusher, and you will still be able to hit, but you lose a considerable amount of time by not being able to wield the spear.
Right, the spear, wielding that gives you the fastest run speed in the game, so you want to have the spear, which we'll eventually get. Nah, it's nothing to worry about. It's marathon luck right now. The spiders know you're playing a marathon. Alright, so he's got poison damage. He's gonna run down here. Let's hope for Confound or Plague on the first hit.
Monk Bro is never a bro, that's the problem.
Alright, so 2 hits, didn't happen. So he's gonna run back up, heal in this Oasis, and try again. Now, when he resets, it puts the timer back to when he saved, so that it can't be helped. But attempting this Atlas glitch isn't wasting too much time. You lose about 3 to 3.5 seconds each attempt from screen transitions. Alright, he got confounded there, so he's going to throw Pixie Dust on. And Pixie Dust, the purpose of that is to bring you back to life once you take lethal damage. He's throwing Defend on because he wants to underflow his defense, and now he's putting Atlas on to underflow his strength. He took lethal damage there. I'm assuming we're going to check what his strength and defense is now.
Too bad. It could have been a lot better. I'm probably going to lose maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, I think. But that's not. It would have been smart to have to probably have grabbed like a penny or something, or a nectar in advance. Would have been the smart marathon thing to do. I would have saved more time, but I decided that wasn't very rolling deep, and I wanted to roll exceptionally deep.
So a pedal would have gave him 1 extra chance, but right, he's rolling deep. We ain't worried about that. So as you can see, he's doing 999 damage, and if something actually gets a chance to try to attack him, it's not going to do any damage. He's still targetable, but nothing can hurt him, aside from desert damage and a rogue chicken here or there.
And at this point, we could get some commentary from the famous almighty RPG if he'd like to share. Or he doesn't have to say anything at all. I was gonna say read off, so this would be a good time for some donations.
Good job on the run, yeah.
Thank you, Darkwing. Look forward to seeing the amazing Darkwing Duck in his EVO Beastage, because we all know how Darkwing Duck dominates EVO entirely.
Yeah, I spread my wings in that game pretty well. Yeah.
Rolls exceptionally deep. He pretty much pioneered that in Zelda 1. But yeah, basically right now I'm just trying to grind for some tail-ends and some extra levels, because it improves your hit chance, and missing can be really bad in this game.
I mean, you guys are doing a great job. I mean, I don't know anything about the game, so I'm just letting your boy Solar Cell take it home.
No, yeah, it's just like this is just like pretty much this part is like,
He's killing time right now. He's doing what he can to help for the rest of the game, but it is kind of killing time.
Whoa! Alright,
Whoa!
that was pretty sketchy.
A little bit of a mini warp there.
Yeah,
well, I mean, we haven't had any bits or anything. I don't know where the donations and all that are around. Pretty sad. I think we've had like 1 person gift a sub or something, and that was all I saw.
I did donate 10
And that's pretty disgraceful. You guys need to step it up.
I rolled pretty exceptionally deep last night. Speaking of which, oh, fuck! This might not be okay.
Yeah.
Fiend.
So, I mean, you can kind of explain like how the overflow, like, because you're hitting for 999 damage. There was a glitch that you did to get that like damage.
I guess
Right. I mean, I kind of.
Right. So you
Alright,
gotta
you can
calm.
explain it. You can explain it.
Well, I'm not the best at explaining this, but if you were to cast Atlas on yourself at a low level, and how's this work, Colin? I forget. If you slept
So
at
if
an
you-
inn,
Like if you cast Atlas and or defend, it's supposed to temporary or even speed. There's another spell that we don't see because it's ass and just uses 2 spell. But if you cast these spells, it temporarily boosts your stat. And what poison does is it lowers your stats. So by giving the game too many status ailments, so poison, confound, and/or plague, Atlas, all that shit at the same time, it glitches the game out. So when you die and revive yourself, the game thinks that you still have those ridiculously underflowed stats.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it
because I've
takes a-
seen it done before, and I've heard the explanation, and it makes sense. I mean,
the poison lowers you stat-wise, and then once you die and the pixie dust reses you, it takes away those boosts, which actually underflows you. So his strength right now is, and defend is around 65,300, somewhere around there. I don't.
Because it's a marathon.
Yeah, and just also, I don't know how late the tick was for poison, so just to see if
I
you're.
was really good. See, I mean, I just put it up, but
Oh yeah, that's an amazing value. So he's good for the rest of the run. He can't level up. Even if he went to 99, he wouldn't be able to level up to overflow with strength right now.
after like at first it can be really fucking confusing and sketchy, but usually you can kind of tell because what will happen is you get, I believe it's like 30 or 40 frames after being. Oh, let's go, baby! Okay, so what I did right there is when you pick up an item,
Awesome.
well, you get so when you get like money drops and you pick up an item, it causes that item, that ingredient that you pick up to be manipulated to whatever the value of the money is. So instead of having to buy whatever amount of wax now, I'm just gonna get, I have 75 wax, so I'm good for wax, and I just need to buy limestones right now, which are exceptionally expensive. So I didn't even I did need to do the grinding because I didn't get the drop at first, but that's completely RNG. Like, that's, you have to be really lucky.
Yeah, really, to have that on a marathon, that's good luck. So he's gonna buy limestone right now to complete how much crush he's gonna need for the rest of the game. Because even though he's a beast and he's rolling deep, there are 2 bosses left in the game that he can't hit with his weapon. A little bit of resentment in his voice, but he'll go on.
One of the bosses, or both of the bosses, actually do not roll deep whatsoever, and one of them is possible to skip, but for purposes of the marathon, I've never had a failed attempt on him, but it is very common that people will have soft lock issues trying to skip this boss, so I decided it's safest to just fucking be like, alright, fuck it, and do the career percent, which is basically a meme of any percent, in my opinion, but it is what it is. And then the other boss, unfortunately, we have not found any way to skip him at all, and he does not roll deep one bit.
So there's a few things that can ruin Colin's run right now. He's got the ultimate defense, the ultimate strength. But there, like I said, there's a couple bosses he needs some alchemy for, but he's clear for that. The issue comes in soft locks. So there are a few places left in the game where he could soft lock, and you would see a very unhappy ColinBolts. Possibly a little bit of rage, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. Unfortunately, he's very mean to wildlife and talked to that chicken one too many times.
Yeah, ooh, let's go. Alright. If you tap A on that chicken 100 times, he explodes you for 1 damage short of your max health.
Okay, so one other thing in this speed run is cutscene RNG, which we just saw some of that. He got some good cutscene RNG right there. So the game can give you a few different paths your characters can take to reach their specified point in a cutscene. On that specific one, the boy could have walked straight right over the bridge, or he could have took the long way around, down, and then up. Which, we'll say it's about a 1.5 seconds difference for a speed run. Which might not seem like a lot, but for a world record that just finally broke an hour and 16 minutes, it's a lot.
I think it's 2 seconds, isn't it?
It's hard to say for me.
You could be right. I'm not 100% positive. I thought it was 2 seconds, but you're probably right.
I haven't timed it, but the split is usually rolled in with Vigor, so any difference on that fight usually throws me off.
I don't need the wax anymore. I keep forgetting. I haven't gotten IMG since I had like a 130 or something.
So he's in this area getting ready for a Vigor fight, the first place where he can soft lock. So we're gonna keep our fingers crossed, because if he soft locks and then just resets the game, the Atlas glitch doesn't stick. He'll actually return to his original values, which will suck. So he'd have to go back to his save point.
After this, it's pretty much smooth sailing. I could soft lock at Off if you overpass, but this could definitely diminish my everything. But we're gonna have a nice smooth sailing run.
Yeah. So the other way you can damage him with your weapon significantly is to run and take him from behind. So he's going to be doing that on the first hit. He's going to want to not hit him again while he has his arms in the air. So that was fine. He avoided the soft lock. Good fight. Good to go.
I'm not gonna lie, I got a little nervous there.
Not gonna lie, we all did, Colin.
You get your knobs out for this. We're in the good. Give me my knob. You've all seen the face. You've all seen the face. Oh yeah.
So there's no giant skip like we had in Act 1 on this act. So we're going to be just running through the game like you normally would. He's got to go across the river. Now that he has the dog, he has access to the left side of Act 2. He has also access to a pyramid level or the ruins level, but we choose to go to the ruins level because that's where you get the spear, which will allow him to run faster for the rest of the game.
We need to go to the ruins to get Black Eyes. Or one of the
Good point. So the purpose of going over here is to get something called the Diamond Eyes, and the ruins and the pyramids each have one.
And losing them is extraordinarily bad. But everything is gonna be smooth sailing.
Everything's gonna be peachy.
We're not even gonna worry about that.
And I'm just gonna tell you, I'm gonna donate $25, but for every pit you fall into, I'm taking $5 off. So no pressure, Colin.
No falling in the pits today.
So there's a couple areas right now that are gonna have invisible bridges, which usually have to have the revealer spell to see, but as a runner, you memorize... You just scared me while you did 0 damage there. You memorize where these paths are. So we know the paths. Chances are he won't fall into one. He's got a few more to go through, but also usually a run killer, because if you fall into the paths outside of the levels, you have to go talk to this person, this axe chief, if you will. And that, man, you did that quick. Good for you.
I played that really safe.
That will cost a lot of time to run. In here, you'll just get sent back to the beginning or some other area. So right here, he's going to walk past the trigger to break that bridge, so he can keep the dog at the beginning of this little screen, so that when he hits the switch to open the next area, he can just switch to the dog and sprint out of this room. And fight the mini-boss of this area.
Merc!
So he's casting Crush there to get it prepared for Aquagoth, which is the first boss you need that for. So that was a good Minotaur fight. Minotaur can take a couple different paths, but he went straight towards Colin, which is great. Alright. So here, he's going to try a leash. My gosh, you cast a lot of Crush.
I hate this game sometimes. RNG can be a bitch.
Yeah, so when he tries to leash a character, there's umpteen million different ways he can go. Really, it's just 8, but it feels like a bunch.
That
So you
was
kind of
like
just hope.
5 seconds right there. I'm not even joking. Oh my God. This can cost you, on the other hand, upwards to like, like 20 seconds or more. This is. You might want to explain that.
Oh, you're gonna do the ruin skip? Okay,
Oh
so
my! All right, this is not bad actually. Woo! Okay.
I'll let it play out on my screen.
Woo!
All right.
Okay.
So he tried to leash the boy over that bridge right there, but the boy unfortunately walked into the pit, which is fine.
I almost had a god dog though.
Yeah. You want to get the boy over that pit and past the trigger that blocks the bridge, because it'll allow you to quickly leave this area instead of using wings to get out once you get the spear. Wings are an item he bought back up in Nobilia, the marketplace, which will take you out of any dungeon you're in. So he got the bronze spear from the Mad Monk there, and now he'll be able to sprint as fast as he can for the rest of the game. Also, as far as
for this super optimal Monka-esque strat that can cost me a shit ton or save me like 10 frames.
yeah, you go get that Megator. So I'll talk a little bit about sprinting while he's beating up on this boss. When you, much like Secret of Mana, when you hold the A button, you can sprint in any direction you want to. Good kill. And your stamina runs to 0 as long as you're holding A. But we're not waiting for the stamina to refill back to 100 and then continue sprinting. We're actually trying to emulate a perfect running pattern. I think it's a 5-frame cycle of hitting the A button, holding it for a couple frames, letting go, rinse, repeat. It's something like that. Hopefully someone who plays the game doesn't destroy me in chat for saying that.
Hold it for 3 frames, let go on the 4. Oh, fuck! I should have paid attention. Rip 2 minutes.
Ah, that's alright. So yeah, this is what happens if you fall in that pit. You have to talk to Horus here, which will cost some time. He'll introduce you to... Was it Madronius?
Yeah.
From the tent to the right.
Cockdronius.
But it's fine. You wanted to show the story of this game, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So he just doesn't appear out of nowhere at the end of the act.
Fuck this cutscene. God damn.
The rage is real. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to emulate doing a cycle of sprinting perfectly, but most runners have their specific timing to try to sprint perfectly to get the best out of it. The task, however, stays at a perfect 0 stamina and just full-on sprint. It's kind of hard for a human to sprint that quickly. Alright, so I'm going to try again on this pit. It's a little bit of a diagonal bridge. There he goes. And this will be the second time you're separated from the dog in this run. So this is the pyramids. There's the center section, which you use the dog to open these gates. And then the outside sections you run around with the boy to progress through the dungeon.
What was I trying to explain before that?
The sprinting technique. 3 frames.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens is it's like you have to press the button. Oh, of course. Yeah, nice. You press the button, you hold it down for 3 frames, and then on the 4th frame you let go, and then on the 5th frame you want to repress. So it's extremely difficult to match like a perfect pattern, and even for the tasks, it doesn't always get perfect movement in certain spots. It's like I don't know, it's something weird and finicky with the frames. And the frame rate.
One thing to note that he was complaining about was he killed those 2 guardians next to the entrance, and they dropped 90 joules. So on narrow pathways, having a drop will drive a runner insane because it just costs time. You can't get through it. You have to pick it up unless you wait forever for it to disappear. So that's why he was screaming at that. What he just did and what he's about to do is a character switch on the gate opening. Well, he did it for the first one. It gives you control of the character while the screen's transitioning, so you don't have to lose time going back to the dog and then back to the boy.
Oh my god!
I'm gonna have to catch up a little bit to see what he's complaining about. Oh, he's probably complaining about the giant whiff on the door.
You gotta fucking laugh. Oh, I fucking killed this thing. Goddamn.
Alright, so he's switching back to the spear here. He doesn't need to break any more barriers. He's gonna go over these little bridges. And then he's gonna be running to the boss, Rimsalah. Now Rimsalah is gonna cast Confound on him. He's gonna go into his menu and do an animation cancel to stop the Confound animation, which will allow him to run with his characters and attack the boss before the boss releases itself from what's holding it. Because the boss is invincible when it's rolling around on the screen, but if it's just steady right here, you can kill it. And since it wasn't really discussed, Confound switches your controls, so you have to remember to hold down to sprint up there. Otherwise, you'll just reset the animation again, you'll get confounded again, and Rimsalah will take off.
Yeah, the whole time my character is flashing like this. Even earlier when I got confounded by the monk, it's the same thing. All the controls are reversed.
So, very ballsy move. He's rolling deep. He sprinted through that bridge with Confound controls, so good for him. Right now he's going to be doing Diamond Eye Skip. Executed perfectly. So right there's a trigger that you run into where you meet the evil twin of this act, and he'll take the Diamond Eyes from you. I bet you're breathing a sigh of relief right now, aren't you, Colin?
I'm a little pissed that Spider took so long to get over there, but it's definitely good pattern.
So if they take the Diamond Eyes from you, there's an extra section you have to go through at the end of the game to get the Diamond Eyes back. But he still has them now. The game didn't take them out of his inventory, and we can use that to kind of glitch the game towards the end. But the game's also not super smart, and we're going to see the Diamond Eyes get placed into the next boss after the market here.
You might also want to point out that moving right and left is much faster than moving up and down, so that is why... Oh wait, you already did. My bad.
No problem. So this is another boss that has a section of time where he's invincible, and he's trying to get the quick kill before a shield goes over top of it. It's rare, but it is possible to miss enough to where that shield appears, and you have to wait a cycle. But he got the kill. Alright, so that's Aegis. Aegis is dead.
Let's go. Let's...
And he got that. Awesome. I forget what the name of this is called, but if you... during the fight, if you hit one of those bridges, they explode and you lose access to them. But if you do that at the right time, when this cutscene's ending from the boss explosion, you'll actually gain control of the dog. And that allows you to walk the dog to the top of the screen. Now, the dog is a very slow walker. And getting him to the top of the screen saves a few seconds once this cutscene ends. Because everybody has to walk up that bridge. So good on Colin for getting that.
I think what happens is, like, once the boys' fanfare happens and the explosion is going on at the same time, it negates the fanfare for the dog. So, because, like Solar said, due to the dog's AI, or the dog's, like, slow walking, by getting them at the top of the screen, you can save, like, about 2 seconds from transitioning. You just have to make sure you remember to switch back to the boy at the end of the cutscene, which can be a pain.
Alright, so he's going to be finishing up Act 2. He's got one last maze and a boss to go through. More or less your last chance to soft lock, right?
Well, because I bought enough ingredients that Verminator will die no matter what. Technically, it is my last chance to soft lock.
Okay, so going back to the Magmar fight, it'll kind of explain what's going to happen with this Aquagoth fight. The game can handle a certain limit of spells. So you have two different kinds of spells. You have, I don't know what to call it, particle spells, if you will. Like Hardball is a particle spell, where you see it just flying across the screen. It doesn't affect anything else. It just hits your enemy. Then you have different spells like Crush, which are screen spells, which kind of take over the screen. That's a hard one to describe. Like Heat Wave from Magmar was a screen spell, where it freezes the screen, it takes control of everything. So the game can handle total 8 of both of them together, so 16. But if Colin had cast 8, well,
so
he
if
didn't
I
do
were
it
to
on Magmar.
cast 8 animation spells, and Aquagoth casts animation spells himself, so if I were to cast like 8 animation spells and he casted like Lightning Storm, or what? I think it's Lightning Storm, right?
Yeah.
It would cause the game to soft lock because there's too many animation spells going on in the same room at the same time.
And I think Corrosion would do the same thing too.
I think I'm not sure. Yeah, I think Corrosion will also. I think you can get away with him doing Confound, though. I don't think it does.
Okay. So what he's going to be doing is just casting 7 Crush on each wave. And then on the final wave, casting 7 Crush and then 6 Call Beads of Fireball to finish off Aquagoth. And he should be fine.
I actually remembered to menu up that time.
So, ideally for a speed run, he doesn't cast any spells, Aquagoth that is. Because each one of his spells does take time.
Wow, I actually... Oh, fucking guys.
So, based on the damage of killing Aquagoth, if you... I forget what the damage threshold is, but if you don't do quite enough damage from the... I forget what hits first, I missed that, if it's the Crush or the Fireball, but this guy spawns down here that he just killed.
The Crush hits first, and the Fireball finishes him off, which is why we don't sequence break that series of casts.
Yeah, but that guy spawning at the bottom causes a little bit of extra lag, I think, so not awful if that happens, but you don't want that to happen. So this is Act 3. If you haven't noticed yet, the dog keeps changing shape, and so you're about to see a new dog. He's going to be going to the first area. It's a kind of a castle theme in this act. First theme was prehistoric. Second act was kind of like Roman, Greek, pyramids.
I forgot to split shit.
Nothing too remarkable yet. He did buy an Amulet of Annihilation in Act 2, so they could buy a ticket here to continue the storyline. Otherwise, you'd have to go searching in this act for one. So he's going to run up here, he's going to skip a cutscene, and begin the cutscene gauntlet, which is a bunch of off and on mashing just to get through some text boxes.
Also, where I switched to the dog there to transition screens faster, that's purely RNG. Sometimes the dog will just follow you or sniff in one place, and other times he'll position himself better for faster screens. Although I'm not 100% positive that it actually saves that much, or if any at all. But it's commonly believed that it saves a few frames, so just shoutouts to Overfiend and the Rollin Deep crew.
Yeah, shout out to Everfiend. I don't know what he's doing, but I'm sure it's something scientific.
Probably calculating why the moon explodes. We're jerking off to this fucking Rollin Deep ass run.
So what are we running around with a dog or pig dog or what's going on here?
So this is an automatic cutscene. The dog tends to get into some trouble in every act, basically, but somebody took the dog while it had to wait outside during the cutscene gauntlet, put a pig mask on it, who knows why, and the dog got spooked because it ended up being the last little show in that gauntlet, ran out, and just happened to join a pig race and win, which just happens to get you access to the castle.
You might want to explain what just happened there.
Yeah, so right there, he did something called the banquet skip. Usually, you walk up where that banquet is, you have to meet the queen, you lose control of the boy, you become the dog, have to go through a big underground maze, you have to get out of prison with the boy. It's a whole thing. Drives you nuts. You hate it casually.
Fucking super long.
But you have just a short window of time once you hit out of 2 text boxes when you enter there to move the character. And it just happens you're close enough to the entrance to that screen to where you can run out of that screen, which completely cuts all that out. You run back in and then you just run to here, the chessboard with the boy. Now, the game's kind of paused. It's waiting for the dog to walk over because
Fuck
you
yeah,
shouldn't have
dude.
access to him.
that Foot Knight was
but it put you here.
amazing.
So Foot Knight's kind of a pain for a speed run, but my gosh, that was a sexy, sexy fight, Colin. If you get a miss, there's a semi-good chance he'll run around the map, which you lose some time chasing him because he is pretty fast. But he died right at this entrance, which is a good time save. So I'm going to cut right into this. Wings, like I said, will cut you out of any dungeon, put you back to the entrance. But when you're not in a dungeon on specific screens, it'll say, didn't work. So yeah, it doesn't move you, but it still triggers a flag that makes you untargetable by enemies. So that's why he was able to just kind of run through that quickly and not get stuck on the flying enemies. And thus begins the biggest maze of the game, the Dark Forest. So casually, at least for me, this was the biggest pain to kind of go through. You always had to use a map to get through it. Or, if you take note, and some of the hints in the game lead you to it, the owls that are in the trees let you know you're on the right path. So right now he's going to be going through this maze.
And Solar always used to go the wrong way forever. He still had one of the top times in the world.
For the longest time, I was taking the long way around. I was kind of adding an extra 2 screens, I think.
Yeah, you were losing like 16 seconds on this segment.
Nah, it wasn't 16 seconds. I'd call it 6 to 8 seconds.
I was like, what the fuck? That one run that you had, you lost like 16 seconds. I couldn't understand why, but you like figured it out immediately, which is good.
Yeah, I think we had a giant race one weekend, and I was watching someone else that was just having awful Atlas luck. So they were back here, and I looked over, and they went a different way in the Dark Forest. So I instantly pulled up a web page, looked at the map, and it was a very loud head smack. For realizing how much of an idiot I had been.
But yeah, this it's technically all one big room, and that room can be the biggest pain in the ass because like you don't realize how much. First off, it's like kind of hard to learn it to begin with, of course, because it's just like everything looks the fucking same and shit. But also, are you fucking shitting me? What the fuck was that? Alright, wait until you see that. That was some shit. But,
a little bit of dodging there.
and the crit. But, yeah, wow. Like, it's just so easy to lose frames in that area because you can make a lot of the screen transitions really tight and close. And you can also get blocked by so much shit. So, oops, I almost went the wrong way. So, like, especially if you don't just know the route by heart, it can be very, you won't even realize how many frames you're losing, but it's so easy to lose a shit ton of frames in this screen. Like, it's not even funny. And you nudge on, like, the smallest, tiniest things ever that just block you and stop your run,
So one thing Colin just complained about was a crit for critical hit. Typically in a video game, you'd like critical hits, you get extra damage. But because Colin's damage is so high, when he gets a critical hit, it actually overflows the value for that and gives you some value less than 999. A normal hit will give you 999, but a critical hit will give you anything less than that. And you don't want to see that, along with misses.
I'm having the best boss fights ever. So yeah, typically at like a higher level in this game, other than the like small like the tricks that you do, which they're pretty difficult to execute at first, when you're learning. After a while, they're not really that hard. It's always difficult to maximize your movement, and Act 3 is a lot of movement and pathing, as well as, you know, like how Solar was saying earlier with the sprinting, because it's almost impossible to have a perfect sprint pattern, so you lose so many frames that you won't even realize how much time you're losing, unless if you were to look at it and break it down into tasks or something. And RNG plays a big factor too at a higher level. But When you're starting off, it doesn't matter too much because you can always kind of get a good time as long as you don't do extremely risky stuff like 8 casts on Aquagop or something like that, which of course can soft lock the game. Oops. And we're about to roll up to the second worst, debatably the worst boss in the entire game. I think he's the second worst personally because we can easily skip him, although people just choose not to. But this guy sucks. If you do the optimal route for no Verminator skip, you can actually get all the way to this point in the game and he can survive your casts, and basically that's like you soft lock. So that is something you really don't want to happen.
But Daddy's got enough crush to last him, so he's good.
Yeah. So we're about to fucking roll deep all over his bitch ass. I went the wrong way this time though. And it didn't count. That's what I thought. Yep. Alright.
So same kind of thing before. He's going to do a wave of crush, and then he's going to do another wave of crush with the rest of his fireball call beads. Finish him off.
Perfect. Alright. That spell that he cast on me right there, by the way, is one of the most awesome spells in the game. It's the second spell that I got right after the first boss, actually. But we skip it because it is absolutely useless in the speedrun.
Also lag-inducing, so it's a shame that happened, but good to go.
And there's gonna be some more cutscenes here. And we're gonna have a word from our sponsors, Darkwing Duck. So, yeah. So Darkwing Duck, tell us what you think about Zelda 1. All right then. So.
So right now, just to fill that void, we're going through this cutscene to meet the, like I said, chief of this act, which is a queen, Camellia. She'll fill you in that the other queen you met was an imposter. Same old story. But the one important thing is the guy that was leading you up here, Tinker, actually might think of a way to get you back home, which is what your end goal is for this. You're trying to get back home. But before that happens, you got to do something about that evil twin.
Also, she gives us some call beads, which are practically completely fucking useless. Unless if... that's the spirit. So, like, fuck! Yeah, I was gonna explain this fight, but basically you're already about to see how much it fucking sucks.
So
Also,
yeah, kind of a weird fight right here.
At the end, there, the last two guys can drop a prize, is what they call it. And if they drop a prize and you pick it up on the same... Oh my god, dog, what were you doing? He wanted to screw me in the ass. Oh man. But anyways, if they drop a prize, you can pick it up on the same frame that you get the fanfare, and it skips that final text box, and you can just run out. Which saves, like, I think 3 or 4 seconds. It's not, like, super major, but it's nice if you get the RNG for it. Kind of like IFG. Tinker's gonna just go through, some bullshit that we don't really give a fuck about, explaining how the queen is a cunt whore, and you can somehow hear their conversation through this telescope, because this is Evermore, and he's gonna try to get us to buy some shit and save our game, but we're not a pussy, so he can go fuck himself. And then we're gonna grab the axe and head back the way we came, so we can fight another super pain in the ass boss. The reason this guy is a pain in the ass is because there's a quick kill on him, but it's extremely risky, and the quick kill can save a lot of time, but it can also lose a lot of time, and since we're at the very end of the run, it is very sketchy to risk that. So typically most people will go for the safe route and just cast Hypnotize, which allows us to kill the boss without him grabbing us. But since we roll exceptionally deep, I think we're just gonna risk it and try to just void prey and hope we don't get grabbed, I guess. I don't know.
Well, good luck, sir.
So just a little bit of backtracking right now, and then rolling up to one of the worst parts of the game. Whether it's getting grabbed or not, there's a lot of RNG right here that goes into play, which can cost you a ton of time, and there's pretty much absolutely nothing you can do about it. Because we have to have the dog follow us, and the dog can die, he can get stuck, he just get slapped up by this dragon like is happening right now, or this dragon, or that maggot, or this dragon, or this maggot right here, and oh look, he's dead. So we're gonna lose a billion for him not being able to run all the way up top with us, which is unfortunate, but whatever.
So you saw there also that Colin kind of waited at that door, and he didn't touch that door until the dog was up there. Once you hit that, it automatically makes the dog walk to you. So you want the dog to sprint to you, even though he's dead. If he's
dude, the RNG too is so. It looked so.
Oh, we gotta
promising.
see what happens.
It looked so promising.
Oh, what could have happened?
Alright, that was pretty good actually.
Wow.
Tinker might even. We might even get to see some special Tinker getting hit with a fireball and dying. Oh no, didn't happen this time. Sometimes it's very, very, very rare glitch, and I think I've had it happen twice, and I think the only other person that it's happened to is our dear friend Green Ambler in our community. But there's some weird chance that like the fireball will shoot off to Tinker and explode on him and he's dead, but the conversation just goes on and somehow he's still there. And now we're going back to the tower with the mean lady, and
You gotta handle that mean lady.
yeah, we're about to handle business, and pretty much beat the game, cause that's what we do. This guard is walking exceptionally slow to us. To arrest us, apparently. We said no. So he's gonna bring us to the queen. I believe you in the casual you do get arrested, don't you?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
This is where you come out after you get through the sewers. So right now, you would normally cache it. I think that's what Colin was saying. But once you're done talking here, when you walk to the left, there's an entrance into a screen, and that just initiates the boss fight. So you catch the game back up to where it should be.
So yeah, like basically, if we didn't do banquet skip, we'd have to run through a giant maze with the dog. Then eventually we'd end up getting arrested and thrown into prison, and then only ending up there to have to just run all the way to like the chessboard and do all that. So it saves us a considerable amount of time. I don't know who found that. Banquet skip has been discovered a very long time ago, I believe.
I didn't realize you had a 1:18:03, Colin. That's a great time. Congrats on 6th place.
Yeah, I lost a extremely large amount of time in the end boss rush, which you guys will see is an absolute RNG fest, and it's very nerve-wracking also because one small mistake or miss and you're losing seconds, like tons of them. So I was a little upset because I wanted to reach my 17xx goal before the marathon, but decided that was good, and didn't play it one bit since. And yeah, here we are.
All right, so the castle's going to come crashing down. You're also going to see, which you're probably already seeing right now, the biggest source of cutscene RNG in the game. And he got the perfect pattern. So all three characters, the king, the boy, and the dog, can either walk the way they did, or they can take a long, long trip individually around the perimeter of the throne room, which absolutely kills your soul in a run.
There's nothing you can do to affect it, and it just happens if it decides to happen, and it loses you 6 seconds every character that goes around. So you can lose, I think, like, I don't know, upwards to what, 18 seconds, right? 6 times 3? I don't even know. I'm bad at math, so whatever.
We'll call it 18.
But anyways, that is by far one of the biggest cases of cutscene RNG. And there's only one other case of cutscene RNG coming up right in a little bit when we go to talk to Tinker. But oh wait, no, actually, it's towards the very end. We're gonna, after we get the gauges and talk to Tinker again, the boy has the option to either go around the middle or just go straight up and talk to Tinker. But that only loses you like 0.3 seconds, so it's not really. There's nothing bad that could possibly really happen in terms of like cutscenes.
So you're about to see an awful amalgamation of parts in what they call the Windwalker. This flying furnace made from this wood stove, a stone wheel, and this is supposed to be your first flying machine in the game.
And a DK barrel that somehow
the DK
shoots
barrels.
out fumes like
It's for stability.
out of it.
So this is where you get your first access to the previous acts in the game. We need to find a few things to create the rocket that Tinker wants to shoot you off in to the fourth act. You need a gauge, you need a wheel, you need 2 diamond eyes. If you remember, he still has the diamond eyes because he did the diamond eyes skip in Act 2. He's going to go get the gauge first. And then he's going to finish off getting the gauge again.
Oh yeah, finishing off. Oh.
Rolling deep. Come on, boy. The game doesn't care, actually, the label of these 3 special items. It just cares that you have them. So he can turn in 2 gauges. And for some reason, the game repopulates the gourd with another gauge once you turn this in. So he's going to get 2 gauges, but he has to turn the first one in to get access to the second one.
Unless
so this
you lose the diamond eyes, I believe, which is why we do not want to lose them, because...
Right. If he lost the diamond eyes, he'd first have to go fight an additional boss, Cleopatra, back where he fought Thrax, the first boss of the game. And once he does that, then he could do the double gauge technique.
Yeah, and that loses a considerable amount of time, so we do not want that to happen.
Yeah. So this is a section of the game you didn't get to see because he did the rock skip at the base of the volcano. So this is where you usually have to be the first time. Right at the top of this volcano is where the guy that gives you the levitate alchemy spell is, which you actually use to move the rocks like the game intends you to. But since the volcano blew up from fighting that, at this spot to get the gauge. He also used wings at the entrance to this area because he doesn't want any enemies targeting the dog. Because even though you have invincibility, the dog doesn't. And you need the dog to be up there with you because he needs to jump on each platform that you touch. And if you touch him when he's not near you, the dog is just going to walk as an AI control character, which will extremely slow you down.
So I get to see... I'm going to go for a pretty much TAS-only strat right here. Just because... why not? But if I get this, it can actually save upwards to like about 3 seconds. And I got a really, 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 really bad pattern, so I'm actually not gonna go for it. I mean, it's a good pattern. Bless you. Whoa.
Bless you.
Oh wait, I have mic on.
Yeah, so
But,
Tinker can have a bunch of different pathways he can take when you walk into that screen. Colin got an extremely good one. He just walked straight to the right, and the boy was able to talk to him. He didn't have to run too far. Tinker can sometimes go super far away and cost you a few seconds.
there is a trick you can do where you combine the text boxes while leaving the room, which initiates Tinker to where you give the items to Tinker and you basically are just immediately out of the area and you can go and get the other gauge, and it can save about like 5 seconds, but the setup for it is very finicky and risky, and Tinker's patterns are just so erratic that if you don't if you don't get him the first time, then you're costing yourself a screen transition, switching back to the dog and the boy, and it's just a big mess that you don't want to risk. But from what I can tell, I haven't done enough testing on it, as this glitch is like extremely horrific for. Oh my god, RTA. I don't even know how to get back. Oh wait, yeah, I do. Bert. Zeal or somebody was mentioning like that spider can do that to you, and that's the first time I've ever
Yeah,
seen
so
that.
sometimes you try to run around that spider, you just kind of roll off of its hitbox, and there's a chance you will just run onto that vent. But you come back down. It does cost a few seconds, and you'll hate yourself. You'll lose sleep at night. You'll question your existence. But it's not the end of the world.
But yeah, by combining the text box of the boy handing the items to Tinker and the dog leaving the area, you will give the Tinker the items while the boy or while the dog leaves the area, and it just skips that. And right there, what I did is called landing skip, and there's basically a pixel or an area in the game that I don't know, for whatever reason the developers were just like, all right, we were gonna make an area or an extra island or whatever they were gonna put there, but instead they decided that it was not necessary, and they're just gonna leave that there, and it's gonna completely get rid of your Windwalker and soft lock your game on Act 3. So if you were playing casually and that happened to you, there'd be nothing you can do about that. And now we are entering the final act.
Did you seriously gold split that one?
Yes.
All right, so he's going to be getting to I guess you could call it the biggest sequence break of the game, the Saturn skip. But before he does, since I'm sure Colin will want to finish off the run with his own commentary, but if you guys are interested in running this game, feel free to contact me or Colin. The community is great, very friendly with this. We'd love to have you. We'd love to kind of teach you and help you learn this run. It's a fun game. It's a very emotional investment for all the RNG in the game. But it's a good time, so we'd love to have you.
So what happens there is we set the dog up on the final suit, which is basically the final room, or the room where the final boss is. And by having a frame perfect switch, I did that pretty slow too. But by having the boy on the switch, or the dog on the switch, we can just leash the boy into the trigger and skip pretty much all of Act 4 entirely. And also right there, the boy is not fast enough to make it up there, and you're supposed to hit those bombs up with your weapon to destroy the gates or the fence or fans, whatever you call them, subwoofers. but since the dog is infinitely fast, we can just bring him up there, and it drags the boy into the spot. And right now, I'm just gonna be fighting a bunch of bosses that will probably dodge 1,000 times, and it's pretty frustrating. But
Yeah, so this is the final boss rush. The finale of how many misses you're going to get when trying to go through everything. So he's got 3 waves of raptors, some Rinsalas, some doppelgangers, a metal magmar, and the final boss.
there's a few tricks we can do to try to make it go as smooth as possible. Right now, the reason I'm setting the boy in the middle of the screen and the dog off screen is because it reduces the lag, which is pretty helpful. Oh my god, that's 6 misses on that raptor. 7. Wow, it's pretty bad. But this is also when I was doing my purchases in Act 2 at the market, why we buy the Jade disc, which only improves the hit percent by 3%, but it actually makes a considerable amount of difference when it comes to fights like this. And these guys will just go all over the place. And I haven't been killing this guy because the little Hoover vacuum, because it actually if you kill him before that point, it just spawns more of them, which of course takes longer and you have to kill them all.
So yeah, Kalaris, it would have been fun as a race, but Colin's doing a great job with it. And we haven't had a race in a while, but it is a very fun game to race. You usually end up pretty close. Usually the top people in the race end up at the boss rush together, so it's usually pretty close, even with all the RNG. What turns people off to this game usually is the amount of resets at the very first screen where you're trying to die as quickly as possible, and the flowers just will not hit you. You keep dodging. So here's the second to last boss, Metal Magmar. Not too big of a thing. And then we'll get the final boss, Carltron. And time will be on the final hit, which will probably be when Colin says time. So right here, he's attacking him, but whenever Carltron jumps up in the air, he's going to run to the left.
Time.
Yo, Overfiend, it's time, man. Come on. What's going on?
Woo! But
That was a bitch and run.
thank you.
Great job, Colin.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Yeah. Unfortunately, it fell in the ditch. Other than that, it was
Yeah.
a
Good thing I was taking a nap during that, so I missed that part. Yeah. I just wanted to, you know, I sneezed when I woke up, and everyone's like, "What the fuck, man? What are you doing?"
You sneeze.
I split kind of late because it's hard to split on the final hit, but that's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you everybody. Hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, good job, Colin. Great run. And Zeal just said good going. He's the world record holder right now. First person ever to break 116. I'm in second place. So you got a bunch of supporters in here right now, Colin. Great run.
All right. We're gonna have Angie come in. We got Sylvite that's gonna do some commentary, and it's gonna be good stuff.
Everybody, stick around for some Pokemon. Woo!
Gotta catch them all.
Thanks again, Colin, for the run, and Solar Self for commentating.
No problem. Take care, guys. Good luck with the rest of the marathon.
Thank you.
Later, Solar.
Well, I'm all set for whenever.